All right, here we go. Addie Halkin, welcome to the Deep Life Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Addie, you are a spiritual coach, a health and wellness coach, as well as a tarot card reader. And you mentioned that you feel you came to Earth primarily to assist with the current ascension, the ascension process that the planet is going through. And this is right in alignment with kind of our views. We tend to believe too that us humans as a collective, as well as the planet, are here to ascend. What does that ascension process mean to you, both as individually, like us all as individual humans, but then as a collective, as well as the planetary ascension?
Well, when we're talking planetary ascension, I would say that I'm still a little bit on the fence on that one because I hear different things. I hear, eventually the actual Earth is going to split off and there's going to be one 3D and one 5D. I don't really know about that. I know that it's a consciousness shift for sure. And it's collective in the sense that more and more people are waking up, more and more people are wanting something different. Ultimately, they're wanting to feel their soul more. They're wanting to live from their soul more. Many of us are very done with a certain energy controlling the planet. And so that's what it means to me collectively, is that people are deciding to live more from their soul, and they are deciding that they're ultimately, it doesn't matter what their fear level is, they're gonna find that, and they're going to create that kind of world one way or another. And so that's what it means collectively. As far as personally for me, I would say that I'm not going to lie, I have struggled a lot with 3D. It has not been a good match for me. And so it's very personal to me because I know that I don't particularly want to stay if it's going to continue the way it's gone. And I don't mean that, from a negative standpoint. It's just not what I want to stay in. And so it's personal for me, but it's also personal because I see that there's no, there's nothing about suffering in other people that makes me happy. And so I ultimately, want to help people to recognize that they don't have to suffer. And I want to help that in myself too. And so that's kind of what it means to me. I know these are very broad terms, but that's
Yeah, that makes sense. No, for sure. We've had guests on that we talk about, 3D versus 5D. And so our audience is well aware of, what we mean by frequency and energy and raising the consciousness. We too couldn't agree more that it is for sure a shift in consciousness. And I think that as individuals, like, in my opinion, I do believe that we all chose to come here. Like, our souls really did choose to incarnate on this earth. And, we collectively, I think, group into these souls like you and I. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that our paths crossed within this podcast realm, that we're at least a little bit, perhaps maybe, our consciousness level is a little bit higher, and that we're here to aid with other people collectively ascending as well. But it starts with us as individuals. And for myself personally, it has been also a struggle here on earth for sure. But I've given myself, probably over the last 2 years, just so much grace and patience, because it's a shitstorm here, and it's really hard to be human. And I think we truly all are trying to figure out who we are at the depths of our being, who our soul actually wants to become here on earth as this expression of the divine consciousness, God, the almighty creator, whatever you'd like to use in your terminology. So I completely understand. And the suffering, it can be a lot, but I think that that's part of this journey, and it can be so beautiful if we're able to embrace a different perspective as opposed to this doom and gloom. Because I do believe too, and I'm talking so much here, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get into the next question, I promise.
No, please.
I think it's so a little bit cliche, but not, we're not super religious, but the Bible talks about heaven. But I truly believe that we're here to create heaven on earth to the best of our ability. I don't think that heaven's a place that we go. I think it is birthed through us, through that process of attuning our soul to the highest level of consciousness that our vehicle can hold to express. I went on a tangent there. I'm so sorry. I don't usually do that at the beginning of the show. I'm just excited.
Good. I'm glad. Be excited, please.
Yes, okay, let's draw it back a little bit, because you had mentioned that like you have been on this spiritual path and kind of connected at a very young age in your like teens. I think you said you were 17. Kind of walk us through that. It's like, because I don't think I began quote unquote waking up until maybe around like the pandemic, around like 2018, 2019-ish. So we've been on this wellness journey, but to like actually really start opening my eyes was just a few years ago. So I'm curious how that was for you at such a young age. And then you mentioned, this waking up process as I just spoke. What does that mean to you? Because I'm curious if it is, similar to ours, or what your perspective of waking up is.
Well, that's a good question, actually. Waking up, I think, happens it's happened more than once. Like,
Yeah.
it keeps happening more and more. The initial waking up was, yeah, it was around 17 years old. I was going through a terrible eating disorder. And I started working with somebody similar to us. And she went, I had worked with her for about a year and a half, and she basically said to me one day, she said, I don't think I'm the right person perhaps for you. You haven't, it's been a year and a half. I'm used to people getting well in about 6 months, and I don't see that you're getting well. And I was really upset by that, to be honest. But she agreed to meet with me one more time. And we met up, and she looked at me, and she had a very kind of disgusted look on her face. And she said, there's something I need to tell you. She said, I've seen this since we started working together. She said, you have like negative energy attached to your energy field. It's feeding off you. It's negative.
Mm.
She called it foreign energy. But I equate it to what we now like call entities or things like that. And so this was the 90s. I'd never heard of anything like this. But I didn't even have a chance to think about it. I just looked at her and I said, you're right. And I just started coughing and coughing. And this probably went on for a few minutes. And um, I remember walking out of that session and I thought, I feel very different, but I just wasn't sure. And so I went to bed that night. I woke up the next morning and I started crying, and I called her and I said, I'm better. Like, I'm completely healed. I'm done. And so it was from that point forward that I knew this energy spirituality stuff was real. And
Mm.
so that was my first awakening. I got out of like what was going to lead to a very quick death um, from kind of surrendering to that. But then, um, some years went on. I had some intuitive experiences. I've always been really, really highly clairsentient around, especially around people. I'm just not really deceived by people. And then it's funny you mentioned 2018, because that at the end of 2018 is when many spiritual like intuitions increased heavily with me. So I think you're right on target. A lot of people started waking up a lot around that area. And so it's just been continue. I mean, 2021 there was a new level of awakening for me, and then this year has been insane. I've been experiencing downloads and just all kinds of things that I could never dream up in a million years on my own. So that's kind of how it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It must have been so much to handle at such a young age, being 17 and kind of realizing that. Do you think that it was your just awareness of these negative entities that allowed you to clear them? Or I feel like this is something that people are going to be a little bit intrigued by or interested in. Like,
No, that's a great question. I can only assume it's when it was brought to my awareness, but I will be honest, I now pick up on it on other people.
Mm.
I now know why she had a disgusted look, because these things they feel disgusting. But um uh you know, I think it was the awareness, but I have tried to talk to people when I've noticed that they have this going on. And I think it's just what I'm attracting, but many people have not been open to clearing them. So not everybody does this work based
Mm.
off the awareness. It's just that I had suffered enough. Like, I was like, I don't care what it takes. I will accept whatever this is. to move on. So, but yeah, it's like it is kind of like you can't really clear something if you're not aware.
Yeah.
Although I've heard stories of people not being aware, and then they hear a weird voice come in and say something to them, and then, it makes them aware something's around them, and then source will come in. And so I think everybody's experience is different.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how did you, well, yeah, let's lean into this just a little bit. How did you learn how to clear this entity or negative energy, whatever you'd like to call it, for yourself? And then do you help your clients do this as well?
So I still don't know how to clear them. That just happened without thought.
Okay.
I probably should learn, because these things are very destructive. I've seen people lose kind of their whole life over having something like this, depending on the strength of the energy field, thing on their field, energy attached to their field. And so I don't actually know how to clear them. I do know how to pick up on them.
Hmm.
I am starting to look into clearing them. I feel like energy clears, they don't have a very easy job. It's very, it it's like dealing with a demonic person. It's the same. It feels the same. It's challenging. You have
Hmm.
to have a lot of protection.
Yeah,
And
energy protection for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we so graciously told us. Thank you for being vulnerable too. About having an eating disorder. I too struggled with an eating disorder, and probably actually started around 17 as
Oh,
well,
wow.
my freshman year in college, and it lasted over a decade, nearly 12 years. So it was a struggle for sure. And I've talked about it on the podcast, but I'm glad.
I'm just curious, how did you clear that?
So I honestly, I got so exhausted of living a double life, and I felt it draining my energy. Like you two, I thought I was going to die. And, Dan had somewhat of an idea of it. We've been together a very long time, nearly 2 decades, almost 20 years. So he's been with me through the whole journey of it. And, within Dan's a personal trainer and holistic lifestyle coach. So, and I did some nutrition coaching with him for years ago. This was once I healed myself, or what I thought I healed myself. So when we were beginning our wellness kind of health journey, about for myself about 10 years ago, I would still be eating healthy foods, but I felt the need to binge and purge. And it was this never ending cycle. I understood that it was much more psychological and energetic, that I could eat all the healthy food. I wasn't fixing the internal root problem of how I felt so unsafe in my body and unsafe in the world. And what I was using as a coping mechanism to feel safe was food. And I just was on the couch one night. I looked at it, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to kill myself. Tomorrow we got to figure this out. And I think it was hallelujah. Finally, he's so gracious. I don't want to say, let me kill my body in this way, but he just understood it was a process that I do believe I came here to learn through. And the next day he just helped me kind of do a 30-day metabolic reset, because I'm sure when you're binging and purging, you are destroying your gut microbiome, which is so imperative to the health of your entire body. It's the signal, your gut brain connection. So I rebuilt my gut within 30 days, and that's it. That was about 10 years ago, and I have been great since.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So just a little clarity that you can maybe tell me. When I was working with her, after 6 months of working with her, I felt better here, but I could not kick the behavior. And it wasn't until the entity was gone that I kicked the behavior. But it's interesting to me that you just went the other way. And then this part was gone.
It's interesting too. I love where this conversation is going. I hope that it's helpful to people, because we're all different and individual, even though we can struggle with the same things. I think for me, and I've been journaling about this, I want to say I'm healed because I don't binge and purge, but I still to this day have to really pay attention to the energy and intention that I have when eating food, because I can still have a distorted lens that I look through, that fear of it. I don't believe food's going to make me fat anymore, but for a very long time I did. or like I'd punish myself by working out harder.
Yeah.
I tend to be very highly controlling. So I think that like aided me in the releasing of the like eating disorder itself, because it was a way to control it. Like I binged and purged to feel better, but now this was a way to control my food intake in my body and know that like I was at least controlling that aspect, but my mind hadn't fully almost caught up to it. That's what's just getting, I feel like, caught up over the past couple years. In my opinion, I think that that's what it was.
Okay. Yeah. Any way you do it,
Yeah.
all that matters is that it gets done. So very
Yes,
cool.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm really grateful that we took this little kind of side detour here, because I didn't tell anybody when I first started doing the nutrition coaching with Dan, maybe about 5 years ago. I felt like such an imposter. Like none of our clients knew it. I was just like afraid to like voice it. And then one day, kind of like with the eating disorder, I was like, I said, I was like, I've got to come out with this. Like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like I feel like I'm lying to everybody, because I was technically, even though I wasn't doing it. And I just put it out there. I put it on social media. I really I called like my closest friends that I had never told in my life. And obviously everybody was really appreciative and, supportive. But as soon as I put it out on social media and we started talking more about it on the podcast, so many women would just be like, me too. Me too. I've had an eating disorder. I had this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are people just really, women specifically, not speaking about this? And I didn't know, like even some of my like friends are saying it to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I do think it's a good thing to bring up every once in a while when the time's right, so that others don't feel they're the only one going through it, and having as similar of stories but different ways on how we were able to get through it, I think is really, really helpful. So I'm grateful that Source directed us in this direction.
Yeah, and that's why I continue to encourage people, do not stop posting on social media. We need to hear each other. I'm so sick of the censorship. Like that's exactly why. Like we have nothing but, help to be giving each other. So and by the way, Dan, I used to be a personal trainer. I loved it. Yeah, I didn't like the sales part of it, but I did love it. So
I'm the same way.
are you? Very good.
We talk to a lot of people who have this kind of same trajectory, though, and I think that it is a wonderful stepping stone into a more spiritual or holistic path. Like I believe like our bodies were housing the soul that's incarnated from spirit. And I believe, and I'd actually love your opinion as a personal trainer. I didn't know that we could go here either, but this might be a fun little detour, and then we'll get back on track to the waking up. But I think it's just a path to go through, like when the health of your body and the feelings, I think, that accompany it when you become more quote unquote healthy, or at least like in alignment with the health of your body, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like then you're like interested in doing more. Like, okay, if my body's good, like how can I get my mind good? How can I begin meditating or journaling? And I found myself wanting to do all these things. So I'm curious if you also had that similar path, or your clients did when you were a personal trainer.
There this is yes. And here's the thing. This is actually the biggest lesson that I have had to learn, and I'm still in the process. I still have a lot of struggle with the body. I think I'm very I don't get sick from anybody ever. It's been like 35 years, but I am very sensitive to the crap being used on the planet, like the pesticides and all the poisons. And so there's nothing that I have felt more kept down by than how crappy I feel. And I hate that that's my story, but it is, this is a base. Our body is the base. And so the better you can make that feel, the more you're going to be extending outward the way you want. So yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, I have found that I think that, or I guess kind of my theory almost on it, and through what I've seen in my experience, I think that we all have this innate drive to evolve and evolve in consciousness. And I think that like fitness is such a great gateway to that, because we're all so disconnected from our bodies and from health and wellness. And our society is just very backwards in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
there is a thing, like there is also this sort of mainstream fitness, and it's a way our soul can get our attention and be like, well, try this because you want to be better. So
Yeah.
like I was drawn to this path of bettering myself. And then that got me into thinking, like Elise asked, like, what's the next thing I can learn? What's the next way I can develop myself? And it's all like allowing for this expression of something higher than me to like flow through me. And it's like,
Yeah.
now I think it was like the way that I can take care of my body is a way of loving myself, but it's also like all these other things are ways I can love myself and connect to nature and eat better and make sure I go to sleep. And it's all self-love, and it's all like the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah, totally. And I know not everybody agrees, but I think like physical movement is fun. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's also fun if you let it be.
Yeah. And yeah. And also like a lot of people can unfortunately treat it like a punishment instead. And it's like, and it's become, and so much of like, when I say like corporate fitness and like this mainstream fitness, a lot of that is sort of like the boot camp, like drill instructor, I'm going to punish you for what you ate last night kind of thing.
Right.
Then it gets distorted. So it's like all these people who have this innate drive to evolve and better themselves, and their only outlet for it is to go to some boot camp class and get yelled at and punished. And then we create this like disharmony between ourselves and the thing that's best for us. But if we allow it to, it can become something really powerful to kind of fuel our ascension in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all how you perceive it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this one's okay. I feel like we did all right. We went our left and our right ways down the path, but like here we go. We're circling back around. I feel like it's going to align nicely with kind of because Addie, you beautifully, like I started to compliment you on saying your process and the different stages of it and being vulnerable. So thank you for that. But what does it mean to, you know, wake the planet up? And I think you so wonderfully kind of hinted in there, and like, let's get into this, that I really hope, and I am hopeful, and I do think that this is perhaps my own perspective coming through, or maybe I'm looking through a different lens and trying to be as optimistic as I can, but people are beginning to recognize like how detrimental it is to spray like horrible chemicals on the foods that we're eating. And, you know, I mean, diabetes is skyrocketing. Yes, I too, like Dan and I, we literally like can't eat wheat and flour anymore, and like certain nuts, because everything is so saturated with these horrible chemicals that people thought was like, okay, because we had an excess amount of them after the Second World War, and just figured let's use it on the planet. And so I don't think people truly understand that those chemicals are genetically modified. They're awful for us. They're breaking down the energetic systems that are doing what is supposed to be done so beautifully in our bodies that, I mean, I can't speak to because I'm not a scientist but it's also affecting the health of our planet. Like Mother Earth, she's a living being, and she so graciously is hosting us as, you know, a little microcosm of the macrocosm. And I hope that I'm confident that you feel this way. Like this is at least hopefully like a start to understand, like we've got to really open our eyes and understand that this is not helpful at all to us individually or collectively.
It's not helpful, and we are reaching a real tipping point right now. Like if we don't really start actually giving a crap and finding this, that's why I opened my channel. Like we have to find the solutions, and we have that. We can receive it from source. There's lots of people out there developing technology or developing you know, I just did a video on composting. I mean, you know, as small as that is, if we all start participating in stuff like that, we have the power to turn the ship around. But if we don't, we're headed towards a collapse. I mean, we just are. And I don't think enough people understand that, because our media just doesn't tell the truth. And so that's why I'm saying, let's post on social media more, please. I don't care. I know there's crazies. I know there's misinformation, but look at our media.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah, that's how
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I think like composting is such a great example because it does start with the individual. And it's like if each one of us can literally take care of our own backyard, then it's going to grow so fast. And it's a movement that I'm curious how you see this. Like I see it, it's clearly happening. Like there is this mass ascension, this wake up that's happening, and really looking at the conversations people are having now compared to the conversations 10 years ago. Like this show wouldn't have existed 10 years ago because people weren't talking about this kind of stuff. People weren't embracing this. And now it's changing really, really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. And that's a lot due to social media.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really, yeah.
absolutely. Yes, yes, yeah. I think that there's, upsides and downsides to everything. And, we
Yep.
can't have light without the dark. And of
Yes.
course, like I've heard this too, like it's going to get worse before it gets better, but perhaps that is the purge that's necessary. Perhaps that is the continued awakening and raising of consciousness that we need, because if everything was all handy dandy, like we wouldn't technically learn anything, like we
Yes.
wouldn't grow and evolve. Like, I mean, you know how it is, like if you do the same thing for a week, you're kind of bored. So having the polarity and the juxtaposition and opposites can be really beneficial, because then we can reflect onto what's happening to our planet, like that's happening to us internally as well. And there's so many like galaxies and planets with us as infinite beings too. We just like can't see them inside. But like it infinitely goes both ways, like outside and in, I believe, or at least that's my opinion. I actually like don't know. I just feel like that is as true to me. And so I too, and I'm curious what you think of this, because when we began going down these rabbit holes, it was really discouraging, and I felt like I was helpless and like not understanding what to do. And you hear from a lot of people like, I'm one person, what can I do? Like, what am I going to do? Like, okay, I stopped buying plastic bags, but 7 billion other people are buying them. So really, is that just, helpful? And I've grappled with that a lot too. Like, I mean, I buy paper towels, I have plastic bags, and in here, I try to do as much as I can, but there are things here and there. So I do believe it's a process. It's
Yes.
kind of like us becoming completely different people overnight. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that it's like a dissolution process so that we can like exit this kind of like 3D consciousness that we're talking about, the fear, the scarcity, the lack, thinking that we're all separate from one another, thinking that we're separate from the plants and animals and Mother Earth herself, when it's actually like, okay, let me pull back and really just feel like, what's going on within my head? Why do I have this specific perspective, and why is it all doom and gloom within me? Why am I freaking the fuck out and like wanting to change everything immediately? Like, how can I just work on myself? And I truly believe, and would love your opinion, as I understand the nature of who I am, then I can at least hold more sympathy and compassion for people that aren't doing the things that I think would be beneficial for the planet, because at one point or another, I was oblivious to these things, as a lot of people are. So how could I be held accountable for things that I was oblivious to? Like that's why I said I kind of try to give myself grace and compassion, then it allows me to do that for others. So I love what you're saying. It's like, right, let's continue to have these conversations on podcasts, on the YouTube, on social media. This is luckily one of the beautiful aspects of technology, that we're connected to literally every person around the world. And I do believe that that's why this shift is happening so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is actually a very good point. I was talking to someone a day or two ago on a podcast, and he was talking about, we've all heard the thing of like, you get what you believe. I mean, we all hear that. I feel like half the time it's in one ear and out the other with me, because but I know it's true. But he really highlighted it. He said, if you continue to believe that, a large part of the collective is not going to wake up, then you don't give them an opportunity to wake up, because they can only give you what you believe about them. And I thought, yeah, that's right. If people are not waking up, we don't need to be making it worse for them. You know, we need to hold them in the light and see that they can wake up too. We did. We didn't all know this at first. So great point.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking a lot about consciousness. I want to just also bring in the subconscious, because we forget that our subconscious is actually what's driving our conscious thoughts that lead to feelings that lead to actions. And I didn't really understand this until probably a few years ago and started diving deeply into it. Like, we want to make these right choices and these right decisions to both help ourselves individually and then collectively, as well as the planet. But because so many of us, not so many, every single one of us is driven by our subconscious programming, which is dictated and absorbed and energetically taken on from such a young age, like, we're just mimicking what everybody around us did. And so we think and believe that this is the way that life is essentially, quote unquote, supposed to be. But it's like, now we've got to kind of reevaluate what our values are individually so that we can begin to be more in balance and harmony with nature and work collectively to co-create, hopefully, what is a more harmonious place here on planet Earth. But I think to do that, it's really hard to look within ourselves, because we do tend to, and I've seen this a lot going through this process, like I was saying, doom and gloom a while ago, it's easy to blame. It's very easy to blame the pharmaceutical companies and the, you know, the people spraying chemicals. It is. And I'm not saying they're not at fault. Of course they are. They're the ones doing it. But to what degree am I still like not allowing that to happen, but it's in my reality. Like it's in my reality and I'm perceiving it. So I love that you're saying, like, you're here for this ascension process. Like, I believe so too. But I don't think like me storming into like the glyphosate offices or Roundup offices is like going to stop them from spraying. It's on what level can I begin to change myself and shift in the best way possible to show up as a better version of myself that hopefully energetically is shown to people in a way that like they're like, oh, Elise is doing this, or she doesn't buy this anymore. She eats all this and sustainable food and, you know, biodynamic farming. Like, where can I lead by example as a, you know, one foot in front of the other, as opposed to bringing more like hateful action into a society that so desperately needs like love and acceptance and allowance, to even be like angry and mad. Like, it's really okay to struggle with this. Like, yes, it's not okay. It's abhorrent, some of the things that happen on this planet and to people. I mean, it's freaking nuts. And it's hard to wrap our head around. So yeah, I'm going off on a tangent again, but
oh, I've been there so many times. I get it. I get no, it is very hard to not get upset. It's okay if you do, but I have asked my spirit team. I don't see them, but I talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
I've asked many times. I said, "What do we do about the corruption on this planet?" And they have said to me for years. They've said, "You take your attention and your business away from them is what you do. That's the way to fix it. It's never going to work with civil war. It's never going to work with our hatred." That they kind of want that, because then they, you know, the people that are running the planet, they understand how energy works. They understand we create our reality based off what we believe. And so if we keep giving them attention in any form, we keep them alive. So yeah, just do your loving self and keep your attention as far away as you can.
Yeah, what we resist persists.
Yeah, exactly.
They thrive off of us knowing that they exist and wanting to fight against them, because it's just a pendulum swing. Whether you support them or fight them, they still get energy. So
Yep.
yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. I think that's such a great answer. And it's like,
Yeah.
do what you can do to like make your own life as good as possible. Don't worry about things you can't control.
Yeah. And you know, by doing that, you don't feed them. So
yeah, win-win.
Absolutely, yes. Attention is energy. Where your attention goes, energy flows. I mean, that's how the universe works. Absolutely. So what would you say is your opinion, like walking away from these systems, and like, what do you mean by, you know, maybe walking away, exiting, not putting our attention into them, as opposing to just like trying to fix or better them?
that is an awesome question. Thank you for asking. So I'm not opposed to fixing them. I just don't see that working because they're built off faulty foundations. The people in control of these systems do not have good intentions for the most part. And so I think we are much better to, and I don't know how this all looks. That's why I opened my channel. Like I want everybody's, you know, what they know. I want to hear what people know because we can't all do it. One person cannot do all of this. It takes all of us to start finding different ways around the systems. But I know that the power lies in walking away and creating something new. And so for me, I have some ideas around the environment. I have some ideas around the medical industry. The rest of it, I'm not real skilled in government or health, and education, but I do know that there's enough people that know enough things that if we start talking, we're going to be able to figure this out. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that I've observed too, and I believe because so many, I feel like the population has gone up like tremendously over like the last 5-10 years. I mean, if you correct me if I'm wrong.
Supposedly.
I've
never counted them.
Very good point. But I think that our kind of generation here, we're in our like late 30s. I don't know if you are along that same age range.
Older.
A little bit older, okay. But you can't be much older. If you are, you look freaking phenomenal. But like,
thank you.
That much older. But I'm saying, like, as a collective, like, I think that we're coming here in a very pivotal point because Dan and I don't have children. Literally all of our friends do, though. And I think that our friends, or at least the ones that are kind of like in alignment with what we're speaking about here, that are beginning to wake up, understand how detrimental like poisoning our planet is, eating better, mindfulness, being able to move our body, connecting with that spirituality, being able to, work from our heart center and lead with love, lead with that source energy, as opposed to the egoic nature of, the illusion here at separation. Like, I think those children, because they're gathering a much more different energy and understanding, I think they're the ones to really usher in this next level of ascension, because like I had said, we have to, I truly believe that to better the planet, we have to just start at the individual level. Like I can't remember what the quote is, like you can't be at war with others if you're at war with yourself. So that's why he said, like, we must, or I believe, again, this is my opinion, I believe that uncovering deep down what our core values are, what we truly want to see within the world, we've got to discover within us. And if that's murky, if it's clouded, which it typically is, because we're gathering all information from social media, from teachers, from school, from parents, from movies, from all of these things, it's hard to know like what we truly believe is good, bad, right, and wrong, or if there's gray area, which there is more than half the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like with our understanding of that and observing my friends parent their children, it's like, okay, they're at least giving their children a much different energy and environment than I ever was able to grow up in. And I've had to now discover this almost 4 decades later for myself, where I think the shift is happening at hopefully a much younger age, so that these people are coming in to reevaluate and change things. Because I completely agree. I'm not opposed to fixing things, but I don't think you're going to fix a system that's already broken, because the people who started it are broken. And until they completely rewire their neural pathways in their brain, I don't think it's going to happen. Like, unless they have a come to Jesus moment, maybe it is. I don't want to discredit anybody's ability to do that. I think it's starting with like a new human. It's a new human that's going to birth the new systems that will be much more in alignment with the harmony and balance of the planet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could not agree more. And I don't know, how many people, well, okay, so there's somebody like I love to listen to on social media, and she was talking about how she was shown in a download that and this is not about male or female, so keep in mind, I understand, there's no better or lesser than, but she was shown that a lot of divine feminine have been brought to the planet over the
Yeah.
last 70 years to counterbalance the toxic masculinity. And so I think that's a lot of what's happening. It could be in a male form, so it doesn't mean just
Yes,
all
yes, yes, yes.
females. But yeah, Source has been working with this planet for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I love that. I'm glad that you brought that up and that it's not gender debate
Mhm.
depending on
Yeah,
what
there's
you.
a balance of energy, not.
yeah, exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
curious, because I know that we briefly spoke about this a little bit more, and I want to open this space up to you to talk more about it. But you talked about these kind of like entities and demons that can attach to our energetic field. Like, have you observed this like with people in high up positions and like the systems? Like, or are you just kind of like looking at it as individuals when you're either talking to them in person? And like, can you see it via like a Zoom call like this?
That's that's interesting. I'm first clairsentient, so I'm first a feeler.
Okay, sure.
The other stuff is evolving, but it's always been clairsentient. And so I have actually recently seen it in people that I'm like watching on YouTube. Um
Interesting.
I don't see the form. I should say I have recently picked it up through feeling. But it's more the people in my life that I will pick it up. Now, if I talk to somebody over Zoom, I would eventually know. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
it sometimes takes a minute to sink in with me, but let me tell you, it's a beast of a thing to pick up on. I am having to really work on myself as I'm getting more clairsentient because like I have somebody right now in my life who, man, I am picking up on all kinds of things from, it started with an entity to I'm now picking up on energy that she has trapped in another dimension. This is stuff I never would have come up with on my own. So the more intuitive I get, the more I pick up on it, but it's more clairsentient. There's some clairvoyance, there's some clairaudience,
Sure.
claircognience. I think all of us just kind of have more of one than the other.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, like
yeah,
most attributes, right? Like some people can see better than others, some people can hear better.
just curious, what do you think you guys do the most of? Would you say?
Feeling for sure for me, clear.
Okay.
Yeah, like for sure empathic, like
Yeah.
tap into that so much. I feel like I've certainly like heard voices. Like I know that we talk about it too on the podcast. But like they're very far and few, but I
Okay.
know that the more that I tap into that energy and clear myself and almost like my vehicle here, like they'll come more to me. I do receive a lot, kind of like you had mentioned in your little bio thing, that like receiving intuitive downloads from source, like I get a lot of those, mainly like for myself though, like it only makes sense. It makes sense for me personally, but like when I'll say it to Dan or I'll say it to other people, like, oh wait, that's really good. So like I know it's for me, but again, like it's really a two-way street. Like if I'm bettering myself and can do this and the message is for me, I am part of the whole, we're all connected. Like of course it's going to resonate with some people.
Okay. What about you, Dan? What do you think is your primary way?
I really don't know. It is, I think, feeling in a lot of ways, like I am.
Cognience is like the knowing. Some people have a lot of that too.
Yeah, I think probably it's like that. Like my body's just like I'm very kinesthetically
Okay.
aware, but also there is like a little bit of just like a knowing to things, but it's like it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It is, but it's just like I almost like feel in my body that I know something is true in a sense.
I don't doubt that. You're a personal trainer. Of course you're kinesthetic.
I feel like it's part of like what I said before, like we're called to these things. And I do think that like I got into fitness for a reason. Like there's something about understanding what's going on in my body and recognizing things in my body and feeling them. But
yeah, very cool.
at the same time, I think for a long time, like I suppressed a lot of emotions and feelings. So there's a murkiness to it.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways too. It was never really like celebrated or cultivated.
I think most of us have done that. We are like that's crazy. I'm not going to hear that or whatever. And so it's really beautiful because right now people are starting to stop doing that. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's really exciting when we're able to embrace our humanness. Like I started the show, like it's really hard to be a human. And there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of trying to keep up with the Joneses and then listening to someone say boys don't cry and then never being able to, or girls don't cry. Like I feel like I didn't cry for like 20 years and then all of a sudden I was like, all right, I gotta cry somehow. But I feel like I think that that's what's opened me up to be more empathic and to have this clear sentience of a feeling, like because I had suppressed so many emotions, which I've learned and gathered from a lot of teachers in the spiritual community, that emotions tend to be tied to the egoic self, our false sense of who we believe ourselves to be when we come here. Like that's how we have to navigate this world through, which is a part of all of us. And those emotions can get stuck and trapped because what are emotions? They're energy and motions, and they're tied to the stories that are perpetually running in our head. Those kind of, like I was talking about, the subconscious thoughts that bring about our conscious thoughts, feelings, and then actions. They're all driven from the ego self. And so those emotions, when they're not properly like identified and then like washed away from us, they store and they get blocked, and we're not able to feel what we're supposed to feel. And I believe feeling is different than emotions. And from like my understanding that these teachers are talking about, we're sentient beings. We're here to feel things, to feel hurt, to feel pain, to feel exhaustion, to feel bliss, to feel love, but they're blocked by the emotions of the ego that haven't been like cleared, cleaned, and dissolved from us. So we don't know, like our soul doesn't, it can't tangibly understand because the energy of the emotion is stuck in there. And like what our sentient being, the true nature of who we are, just wants to feel something, because to feel it is then like to know it, embody it, then it becomes that gnosis. It's within us, and we can gather the information and wisdom to navigate the world much better. But it's complicated when it's too much of an emotional sense tied to that ego.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's kind of good that you just identified the difference between the two. I'd never have said it that way, but yeah. And I can tell you that right now there's a real opportunity with the energy right now. And I only know this because I'm going through it. Source is really helping us to really dig up those, as you call it, subconscious things right now. I cannot tell you the amount of like the stuff that has come up. And I'm not a real like go to the past therapy kind of person. I don't care about past lifetimes, future lifetimes. I really just care about right now. And man, this is the time. Like if you can find a quiet space, this is the time. You are going to find out things that you didn't realize you were holding on to. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, I think don't want to speak for Dan here, but I like could not agree more. I've never dove in so deep into my subconscious until maybe the past like year and a half. Like I knew everything, I understood it was running the programs and patterns of my life, but truly until you become aware of it, it's going to dictate your life. Like Carl Jung says, like until you make the unconscious conscious, you're going to, what is it? It
will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, let's just reevaluate here. But I believe that's how we're going to kind of birth this new earth or this better planet, whatever you'd like to call it, is to truly know thyself. Know who we are at the core, that we are literally fragmented pieces of source, creator, God, whatever you'd like to call it, here to help and to evolve and to really raise and elevate all aspects of our lives individually, and then I believe collectively. But honestly, who knows? Like, what do you think is going to happen? Really, it's a good question. I feel like as we're wrapping up, and I want to leave this space open for you to talk about anything that else is on your heart and want to share, but like, I'm curious, like, what do you think is going to happen? I don't even know. I really don't. And I'm not sure if I ever will. But
yeah,
you have to be optimistic. But I have no idea. Do you?
I have no idea either. I'm just, following the little steps I'm being given to, there are certain people that I see in the world right now that I know make great leaders and can help, you know, um, help assist with these new systems and, the new world. I'm hoping they also, feel the nudges and start pulling out of the systems. And I'm just hoping that a new world is created. I have heard many times that this is not the first time that this planet has, people have tried to shift this planet, but it's been really stubbornly stuck for a long time. But I feel like this particular time, something seems to be different.
Mm.
I don't know. I hope we're right about that, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Totally, totally. Well, Addie, thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. But I want to make sure that we leave space open if you feel like we didn't touch upon anything that's on your heart that you'd like to share or touch upon.
Um, there was something that came to my mind, and then and then it went right out. So let me think about that. I would just say, please keep doing what you guys are doing. I feel like that, I just did a video based off of, I like you, I get a lot of downloads from Source, and this video or this download was talking a lot about how, one of the most powerful things that we can do right now is to start finding our people. So I gave the example of, there are people that want to walk away from the current systems, to create something new. And then there's people that want civil war, and both people want the same thing. They want change, but they're going about it from a totally different frequency. And that's not a cohesive group. So Source is really encouraging, finding your energy, finding the people that really are where you're at, because that is going to by far be one of the most effective things we can do right now around shifting things. And I just keep seeing, in my mind's eye, I keep seeing small groups all over the place starting to shift things. And so please keep, putting this stuff out there. I don't think that we can have enough of this. And it is really important that we continue to hear each other, even if things start getting censored. We just have to find a way around all of that, because the light ultimately always wins. And I think that's partially because, with darkness there's holes. There's holes, like it's never cohesive. It's never like, you know, um all together. But with light, it's all together. It's very, I'm not explaining this well, but I will say that you know, light is more powerful than dark. It really is. And so we just need to find our people and really start working that direction. So keep using your podcast that way, please.
Yeah.
I love that you said, we were just talking the other day about how that's been such a theme with a lot of guests lately, bringing up this idea of finding your own community and expanding the sort of like decentralized systems and people creating communities. And I think it's such a beautiful message. And I think I completely agree. I think it is the path forward. And I think it's so
Absolutely.
that came through.
Yeah. And I want to invite you. You guys are both welcome on mine.
Thank you.
You can come together, you come separate. You don't have to, no obligations, but the more of this we put out there, the better. So
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you, Addie. Thank you for joining us today.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care, guys.
All right, I'm just gonna stop the recording.
Okay.